So how do you get rid of the wrong people? You surround them with a culture they can't exist in. Your people start saying, you're going to do it that way? Why don't you just get on out of here? And that's the way the game's going to be played if you want to win. That's my concern, folks. The right people on the bus, what kind of right people? Unwavering resolve, settle for nothing less than number one. When times are bad, things are wrong, results are poor, who do we blame? The mirror. And my statement to you, when you got the good employees, when they make the mistake, educate, fix, and go. Get them better, because that's what we're looking for. And the same is true for you. Disciplined people, thought, and action is what you're looking for if you're going to make it in the business world. If you're going to make it in any world, folks, we've got to be disciplined. Welcome to WOW. That's what we're talking about in business. I teach my clients to exceed customer expectations. To be successful in your career, exceed expectations. Let me give you an example. Small little billion-dollar company. Small little billion-dollar company, and I sit there and I read a book about them. I wanted to do a little search on the company, get ready to go to work for them, and I find a book. It's called, The Service Edge, written years ago. And in the book, they talk about this billion-dollar company. They talk about a secretary, Lorinda Evans Tucker. This company manufactures adhesives. She gets a phone call. She's a secretary, folks. She gets a phone call, and the person's jumping up and down like a shortstop. We're out of glue. We're out of glue. We got to get this adhesive. If I don't get this adhesive, my plant's going to go down. I got 300 people that are going to be out of work. I got to have this glue. She says, sir, calm down. Do we sell you the glue? No. Why are you calling us? Because the people that sell it to me can't get it to me. And you're number one in the industry, so I figured I'd give you a try. She says, well, hang on. Before we go any further, what kind of glue? She types it in, she looks it up, she says, we got it. She says, all right, so she said, I'm going to put you on hold. He says, don't you put me on hold. She says, what? He says, I want to hear you doing something. She says, okay, I'll pick up another phone. She calls the vice president of sales, he's gone. She calls the senior vice president of marketing, she's gone. Folks, she's a secretary. Take a memo. Lorinda Evans says, nope, don't worry about it. So she calls the plant. She calls the plant and says, do we have any? He says, yep, we got some. She says, fine. Put a sticker on it, I'll take care of it. Hangs up the plant, picks up the phone and says, sir, we'll get it there. Hangs up. So she calls the plant back. She says, I need you to ship this down to Tucker, Georgia. The guy says, we can't. She said, what do you mean you can't? He said, no trucks available. Can't get it done. She said, but I told you. He said, you're the secretary. You shouldn't have told them anything. So what does she do? She gets up. Folks, take a memo. She gets up. She walks around the plant. She's looking for somebody with a pickup truck. She gets a pickup truck. She loads. The only thing she doesn't do is put the 55-gallon drums on the truck. She drives it down to have it air freighted down there. She drives up to the air freight company. She says, ship this to Tucker, Georgia. You got an account here? She says, I don't know. I'm the secretary. I've never done this. Lady, you ain't got an account here. We ain't shipping squat. She says, hang on. She goes and gets cash. She walks up. Cash good? Cash is good, lady. They ship it. It gets there. The plant never goes down. By the way, where do they buy their adhesive today? Where is she today? They put it in a book. They hire people and they say, you want to come work for our company? Why don't you read about a secretary and the ownership that she took? How many of y'all want to hire her? How many can you get? You start talking about getting better, start believing in yourself. Believing in yourself, Victor was told by his teacher, you need to drop out of school and go learn how to work with your hands because you don't have it. How would you like to have an authoritarian figure telling you, a child of 15, to drop out of school? You're dumb. And that's what he does. For the next 16 years, he traveled the United States as an itinerant looking for odd jobs. Then he ends up in Dallas, and he's reading the classifieds trying to find a job, and he sees that they're looking for people to test. He calls them up and says, do you have to be smart? No. He said, well, I'm dumb. That's okay. It's a psychological IQ evaluation test. Why don't you come on in? Maybe you can set the curve at the bottom. Okay, so Victor goes in and takes the test the first time. They looked at the score. Said, you're dumb? Yeah. You mind taking it again? You're going to pay me? He wasn't that dumb. Took the test the second time. They looked at the score. You mind taking it again? Yeah, we'll pay you. But we're going to have the guy that wrote the test, got all the PhDs and diplomas on the wall. We're going to have him conduct the test. Victor takes the test the third time. That guy said, he said, I ain't taking this thing again. He said, what, I scored lower than anybody's ever scored in the history of the test? He says, no, sir, as best we can tell, your IQ's over 162. You're a genius. That's why we had you take the test 3 times. He looked at him and said, that's impossible. 16 years ago, my teacher told me I was a dunce. He said, buddy, I don't care what your teacher told you. You're smarter than me. I wrote the test. And when Victor woke up that morning, he showered a dunce, shaved a dunce, dressed a dunce, and drove off as a dunce. The next day, he showered a genius, dressed a genius, and drove off as a genius. Why do I tell you the story? He went on to a 6-figure income, wrote several books, has several patents to his name, and is the past chairman of the Men's Society worldwide. You have to have an IQ of 132 to even be considered. But for 16 years, he gave it up. Why? Because someone said, you're stupid.